to go about this is I'm gonna have everybody read a part of the contract, okay? So we'll start with Madison.
Should I take those drugs? Do you have any more, Joel?
Yes. Does everybody have a packet besides Jolie?
Stay prepared.
All right, guys, here we go. Quiet, please. Yep, number one.
Okay. Right to represent blank buyer, grants blank broker.
Okay, I'll stop you right there. Whose name goes in that line?
The second one would go Kevin Musto with
Yeah.
The Musto team.
Yeah.
The Musto, Sophia Musto, WR Properties.
Okay, the non-exclusive right, unless exclusive is checked in paragraph 2A2 and initialed in paragraph 15, to represent buyer in acquiring real property or a manufactured homes property for the representation period specified in paragraph 2A1.
All right, so 2, terms of representation. The items in this paragraph are contractual terms of the agreement. Reference paragraphs provide further explanation. This form is 5 pages. Buyer is advised to read all 5 pages. So 2A, representation period. The date, obviously, is when you're going to show them property, and it's going to go for how long?
60 days?
90.
Whatever you and your buyer negotiate. 3 years.
Not to exceed 3 months.
For your lifetime. Okay. Not to exceed 3 months. If representation period exceeds 3 months, this agreement is void unless buyer is a corporation, LLC, or partnership. If they're a corporation, LLC, or partnership, it can go longer. Okay?
So with that said, every 3
3
months you
months.
need to have them re-sign this?
It's an LLC.
3 months unless they're an LLC, partnership, or corporation.
They can go longer than 3 months.
Yes.
And not to get ahead of, but up at the top, I told you I'd have all the questions.
That's fine.
Buyer in acquiring real property, is land considered real property?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so 3 months unless they're a partnership, LLC, or corporation.
Lisa, question on that.
Uh-huh.
Do we do this for the 3 months and then do another one for 3 months, or do we just put the extended time on this one?
Well, you could do it either way.
Okay,
You can either do a new form after 3 months, or there is a modification to the buyer rep agreement that you can also complete. Kevin,
On the modification, can you go longer than the 90-day period after that?
3 months.
It's 3, 3, 3,
3, 3, 3, 3.
All right.
We're hoping, and theoretically, you should have them in contract within 3 months. But it's depending on the market, right? So,
yeah.
yeah, depends on the situation. Do you have a question?
He's looking for
No,
insurance.
You just plain, are you medicated today? Dwayne. Oh, Rich?
Yes, Rich just, you're probably looking for less.
Okay, type of representation, non-exclusive or exclusive. You should always check exclusive. But I want you guys to know that it's only valid if this box is checked and initialed in paragraph 15. A lot of you hate checking these damn boxes. You gotta check the boxes. And it's very clear, this is void if the box is not checked and it's not initialed. All right, Danielle, you wanna do, nope, I'm gonna save you, sorry.
Oh.
Are you ready? No, I'll save you. Does anybody have any questions on representation? We're all good? Property type, single-family residence, including condos and manufactured homes, or if checked, single-family residence is excluded. Multifamily with 2 to 4 units, 5 or more units, industrial, vacant land, commercial, tenancy in common, the following specified properties only. typically we're all gonna check, it's just single family residence, right? Now you'll have land, like Kevin said. We really don't do commercial, but we know Molly's got one right now. It's rare.
Would the tenancy in common refer to like probate, if there's a,
I think the last one.
you
No,
know how people are understand title?
right, no,
Oh, okay.
that's not gonna refer.
So we do need to check the box?
Single family, you do not need to check any boxes if you're doing single family residence only. So guys, it's gonna be really important that you read these documents. Okay, anybody have questions on property type? Okay, location. Counties or cities?
All counties.
All counties in California.
All counties in California.
Can you
You're
say
gonna,
that?
sure, you
Okay.
can check, but here's the thing that you have to start checking boxes. And I can tell you, everybody who doesn't check boxes, because I review your contracts, you gotta start checking. It's more important than ever now. You have to check these boxes, because they're making things valid on whether a box is checked.
And we could say all cities in California also?
You could. But this is gonna be dependent on your client, right?
Oh.
It's gonna be specific. There's no template in real estate. Doesn't happen. It's gonna be different every single time.
Could you can't specify it as all counties in the Bay Area.
Sure.
Is there a known, what is Bay Area counties, or that's why I'm asking?
It's all subjective, right?
Yeah.
So, but your client is not gonna be all counties in the Bay Area. Your client's gonna be Contra Costa County, Alameda County, San Joaquin, right? So you guys are way overthinking it. But
Well,
yes, you could.
I'm only asking because I have like a Solano guy, he's going back and forth between Contra Costa, Solano, Alameda, he's like all over the place.
Then you would put all those.
Okay.
Or just say all counties in California.
Okay.
So this is all so brand new, guys, that even NAR hasn't gone and nitpicked us yet. It's going to. They are going to. Right now, be as broad as you can. Joel?
If a buyer of ours decides to see a property in a different county that we didn't add on here, can we just add it afterwards?
Modification.
Okay.
Do a modification. And remember, you have to do it before you show them the property. Because if you wait and then you write an offer, but you didn't do it, and you're gonna come in, you're gonna go, Lisa, I didn't do it. And I'm gonna say, I'm so sorry. Because that agent and that seller are probably gonna ding you if the dates aren't lining up.
Can I ask you a question? So
Uh-huh.
when you're saying before you show the property, like, can you meet them at the first property and have them sign it, or it has to be
Sure.
done before you even start showing it?
Before you start showing them. So if you have them, if you docu-sign this to them right before you're showing,
Yeah.
or you wet sign it in the driveway, that's okay too.
Well, in case they have questions, if you
Sure.
send DocuSign, they don't want to sign it. they might wanna-
They're gonna have questions. So that's why I said, everybody, you need to have some of these in your car. Like next to the roll of toilet paper we keep in our car, right? Put these in your car.
Wait, we're supposed to have toilet paper in our car?
Yes, you are.
Don't.
Have you never been to a vacant house and your client has to go potty?
If you have female buyers, yes, you do.
Sometimes even male ones. Okay, everybody clear on property type or location, sorry. The next line says additional description. That's referring to the location. So they're letting us be really broad, right? Okay, additional buyer preferences. There is a form attached in here. It's called the BIPP, Buyer Identification of Preferences and Priorities. Lame. I know, guys, but this is our new, this is our new business. This is our new way of doing business. So before we would have a buyer consultation, hopefully everybody has a buyer consultation with their buyer. This is just a form that helps you have that consultation. Okay? It's more paperwork, but suck it up, buttercup.
Do we have to check that box where it says additional buyers preference?
If they filled out the BIPP.
But they don't have to?
What if they don't fill it out?
If they don't, then don't check the box. But this is a very handy tool for you guys when you have your buyer consultation. What's the matter, go?
Oh, I got an idea already with that.
Please share. We're all learning
Because
together.
I just sent out to all our clients this form, just discussing, hey, these are the new changes. Now with some leads that maybe we haven't spoken to, well, hey, we're updating our database and our criteria. Do you have a second to fill out this form so we can make sure we're sending you the proper property?
Oh my God, you're a genius. What a great tool this is now, right? So it's not so
I'm
ugly
gonna call
anymore.
Patrick, get a template made.
Absolutely. Or you just send them this, yeah. Upload it into your DocuSign or however you want to do it. You can upload it into your SkySlope and send it out with that e-sign if you don't use DocuSign. Pretty simple. Okay, broker compensation. The amount or rate of real estate commissions is not fixed by law. They are set by each broker individually and may be negotiable between buyer and broker. See attached broker compensation advisory, the BCA. We've been having that signed for months. This verbiage that I just read to you has been in our contract for years. It's not new. It's always been negotiable. Okay, amount of compensation. Blank percent of the acquisition price and if any blank, or check the box blank, or check the box see attached compensation schedule. I told you you should put 3%. Because if you write on a property where the concession is 3% and you have 2.5%, you are not getting 3%. You can go down, you can't go up. Okay? So 3%.
What if you put 3% and then they're only offering 2.5%? Do you need to do an amendment?
You're only getting the 2.5. You can go down, you can't go up.
Well, would we get the other 0.5% from our buyer?
You could. Yes, you absolutely could. So this is to your benefit, 150%. If your buyer is signing this, Gina Marie,
So the boxes to see attached compensation schedule, could you put on there in the event that it's negotiated lower?
so that document is, if you know in advance that if you say you've done one and it's only 2.5%, and you called Adam on his listing and he says concessions are 3%, you can add it on that buyer compensation. 123 Main Street, 3%. Okay? So that's the compensation schedule. And actually, Christina has done this before.
Yes,
She's been doing this, guys, for a year or more than a year.
I had the buyer paid 0.5% because I put 3% on $1 million purchase.
Right? So I'm gonna say, stick with that 3% as your new norm. I didn't say that. Oh, I'm recorded, so I guess.
What was your conversation with them about that?
Pay it.
So,
No,
guys, the buyer is responsible for our compensation. If they sign this document and it's 3% and they have the money, which is why we do the financials, right? Then they're paying that additional. I saw a post from one of our local agents the other day, and it said concessions were 13,000. And I looked at the sale price, did the math. It wasn't even 2%.
Gotta be careful with that. I saw that too.
Yeah. So I'm like, wow, okay. So that sounds great, 13,000, but it wasn't even 2%. So,
And it said, the one that I seen also said, used towards seller credits or, agent concession or whatever. It was like, and I did the math too, and it was like, that's not enough.
it's not enough. No. And the lenders are going, oh, Carrie, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I'm just curious if anyone's getting any buyer pushback. I had my very first conversation since, 12, with the buyer who texted me, a repeat buyer, and asked, hey, what does it take to go see this house? And I told him, and I explained it in the text. And he's young, and I wasn't sure if it would make sense. And he said, oh, I understand. I've been keeping up on it. So I was like,
Yeah.
it was easier, but I'm just wondering if is anyone seeing pushback, like, no, I'm not signing this, or.
I haven't heard anybody.
I got one from an investor because when it comes time to these counties, that part of the contract. When I told him, so all counties, he said, no. He said, no. I said, well, where are you looking at? Are you only looking in Brentwood, Contra Costa? Where are we looking? And he said, well, I'm only gonna sign it on the one house that you're gonna show me. So that's fine too, but I'm not showing you Vallejo then, huh?
Right.
That's it. There's a pushback when they don't wanna work with you in every property.
Right, and that's, I don't know if I consider that such a pushback as maybe it's, they don't know you.
Yeah.
In your case, Gary, they do.
I think that's good because then you know what their intention is
Right.
up front. You're not wasting time.
And that's why this is a beautiful thing, even though it sounds ugly, but it's really, we're not gonna have so much time wasted, right?
I love it for that reason.
Exactly.
Looky-loos, pretend, and
Yeah.
just think I'm some door opener that like waste hours
Yeah.
in class.
Yep, and when they understand that they're signing a 3% commission, and yes, we're absolutely gonna ask the seller to compensate, but they might not compensate a full 3%. And then the rest is on you. Now we're weeding out, right? Yeah, and you absolutely have the option of taking a 2.5 and not charging your client the 0.5%. But again, that's why they're asking us to do the buyer financial. Because if they can't afford it, are you not worth it? Did you not just help them buy the most expensive thing they'll ever buy in their life? The home where they're gonna sleep and eat every day? Is that not worth something? And that's the conversation we have to have. Okay, where were we? BCA, oh, compensation. So 2.5% is our standard, right? But I guarantee you guys need to put 3. You're gonna be kicking yourself in the butt.
So the C attached compensation schedule is if you were going to do a specific property.
If you know specific properties or more, right? And again, so that's why this is gonna be different for every single client. Because you're showing Tara homes and she wants to see A, B, C, and D, and you've called those agents and you know what those concessions are, you need to adjust for that, right? So we are gonna have to make phone calls as buyer's agents to a listing agent. And as listing agents, we need to answer our phones.
So wait, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
On the compensation schedule, we would list, like, say we're showing the 3 properties, okay, it's 2.5 for this one, or whatever it is.
Right.
Right, but we can leave that as 3, but we would just do like a, whatever that form is.
No,
Oh, it's
you just
have to
create it,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Could you attach the MLS printout and
Yep.
have the amount, like, DocuSign input and then initial next to it?
Or handwrite it in.
Or handwrite it, initial next to it,
Yeah.
always initial next to it?
I would always initial next to it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, anything else on compensation? Okay, next one, E2. Payments received by broker from seller or others. If broker receives compensation from seller or others for broker's representation of buyer, the amount shall be credited against buyer's obligation to pay broker. Broker shall not receive any amount in excess of paragraph 2E1. 2E1 is amount of compensation. Okay, we're clear? All right. Continued right to payment for broker-involved properties. The continuation period shall be blank calendar days after the representation period or any extension. That's always been on our contract, our purchase or our listing agreement, and now it's gonna be on this, okay? So what that means, and I recommend you put it 60 days. You can put 90, you can put 30, again, it's negotiable with your buyer. You have to provide them with a list of homes. I showed Tara Main Street, Oak Street, Filbert. And then she decides she's gonna not buy right now. But I've given her this form that says, I showed you these properties. And then she goes to Melissa and Melissa writes the offer. Now you have procuring costs. Okay, but you have to give them the form, you have to write it up, you have to do some extra work.
What form is that again? I'm sorry.
And
You just write up a form properties
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That you showed.
that you showed them.
that's not the end bit.
Oh, notice of broker involved properties, yes,
that's the one.
NBIP.
M,
NBIP. And I'm just learning these two guys, so
N as in Nancy?
N is in notice
Notice, oh, notice.
of broker involved properties.
I just want to write that down.
NBIP. I forgot all about the NBIP.
And
So how does that get, I'm just curious.
And it's actually right here in your packet, NBIP.
How does that get enforced, say, like, something like that?
Well, then that's when, if this situation happens, you have to be monitoring that, oh my gosh, Tara bought a property from Melissa and I have to enforce it. I have to call Melissa's broker and say, here's all of our documentation.
Okay.
actually, the buyer is the one that's gonna provide that list to.
Yes,
Yeah.
the buyer provides that list to their client. So I'm giving that to Tara and she goes and writes on one of those properties with Melissa. I'm for current cause, I'm entitled. Do we have to sue them? Probably, right? But that's no different than it's always been. Because the buyer broker agreement has always been. We've just never used it. Well, except for Christina. Okay, any questions on that? Cancellation rates? I recommend you put at least 60, but again, that's negotiable with your buyer. All right, time to deliver buyer personal information, financial information. That's the BFPI form. This is a required form. It's not optional. Within 5 days from your buyer signing this form, or it's attached, meaning you've already sent it to them to fill out. Buyer financial and personal information, BFPI.
Can you go back on, the cancellation rights? I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
I meant to say something about that. The buyers doesn't understand that the 60-day cancellation right that you're putting on the contract, meaning that they are obligated. So I tell them that here's the NBIP, and the cancellation is 60 days. That means 60 days from today, if you decide to purchase this house through Melissa, you would be owing 2 commissions.
Yes. You have to have a conversation with your clients. You guys are gonna have to explain these documents to them, okay? So if you have exclusive, it's 30 days after receipt. But it's all written here for you guys, okay? If you have exclusive, which you should be exclusive, but again, totally negotiable, your buyer may not wanna sign an exclusive. So that's why it's gonna be different every time, and why you guys have to read these forms.
Lisa,
Yes,
what about pushback on a buyer saying, why do I need to give you my personal financial information, even though they're already giving it to the lender?
right, and I totally agree with it. I don't even want to see my buyer's personal information,
Right.
right? We just don't, because that's not our lane. But NAR is now making it our lane. I'm gonna say, if they don't want to give it to you, just make a notation. You can't force someone.
Can we get it from the lender?
No, you don't really, we don't want it. I don't want that in our file, right? That's,
So they're
horrible.
requiring it though, right?
yeah. But if your buyer pushes back, just make a notation in the file. I don't want to force them to give us that information. We don't want it now. Just because this is changing, we still don't want it. So I hate even having social security numbers in our file, right? That's why I ask for the QS instead of the FERPAs. I don't want that. I don't want to be responsible for someone's.
Yeah, but the form also says within 5 days they have to provide it to
know.
us. So I mean,
But if they push back, listen, if they push back, make a note in the file. We're not gonna make that subject to whether we represent them, right?
Can we just write it up like they pushed it back?
I would just put denied or something, right? Again, we don't want to be contentious with our clients. We don't want to make it an issue. And especially if it's someone you don't know, right? If it's someone you've worked with before, they're probably not going to have a problem at all. But if they don't know you, I don't want to give you my social. I don't want to give you my bank
Is
account.
it asking it for it? I'm looking on here, like, what personal information are they, like, it asks for a social?
Buyer financial, personal. No, they're not
No,
asking for
because
social.
it just seems like it's just like kind of normal question.
It is,
That we even ask as kind of when we're pre-screening them a little bit.
but,
So,
and they shouldn't push back, but if they do, don't fight them. Don't make this an issue with your client, right? A lot of it you're gonna know, amount of deposit available. I mean, we asked for proof of funds already, right? Now it's just putting it into a form.
What's the purpose of us collecting it in the first place?
I have no idea. Oh, I do know, yes, I do know, to determine whether they can afford to pay our commission.
Isn't
It
that
also
the
has
lender's
the
lane?
But, so it's the lender's lane on the loan, we're getting paid from the buyer. Can you afford to pay us? Or can you not afford to pay us?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
There's a part on this form that I saw where the buyer can mark that they cannot afford to pay.
Yes. We're coming up to it, it's G2.
Okay.
Buyer does not have sufficient funds to pay broker, or buyer intends to purchase with the following loan product, which does not allow buyer to pay compensation to broker. There's a funny thing about that, our lenders are kind of, except for Sean, our lenders aren't really talking to us about how the loan, how the banks are gonna compensate and how that's really gonna work,
I don't
right?
think they know.
I don't think they know either, but they have to know because we have to figure it out, right? And they're our partner. Sean has an excellent thing that he created. It wasn't like his company gave him all that information. He went out and created that. And it was brilliant.
7 months.
Yeah, but he did that on his own. Any other lender, I'm sorry, they don't have that for us yet. Well,
In case the buyer can't afford to pay out of pocket, so let's say they just have enough money for the down payment, the closing costs and whatever, then can you just, if the lender is willing to kick, to give the 2.5%, 3% commission, and they can put on top of the loan, is that against the law?
If- well, we don't know the answer to that yet. That's what we're waiting for the lenders to tell us how they're going to accommodate for all of this. We don't know yet.
If you got a VA buyer, it's gonna be a,
So VA buyers
It'll be a good
have
deal.
compensated.
pardon?
They've adjusted. VA, FHA have adjusted. So they've increased their percentage to 8, I think, allowable.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, but conventional, everything, we don't know.
Well, usually if somebody goes conventional, they always have some money somewhere.
Typically, Yeah.
So what if the buyer does mark that box? Then we just have to depend on getting a seller concession.
Can we say to them if they mark that box, are we allowed to tell them, okay, we're only gonna look at properties that are offering the compensation then? Or is that
that's such a
scary?
sticky, it is scary, right?
But if they can't afford it and you're like,
Then
hey,
we
you
can't
can't
work for
afford
them.
it.
Well, Sean talked about that yesterday. There is a way.
There is a way around it, but now you gotta get the lender involved. And honestly, guys, Sean's the only lender that has come to us and had a solution.
Just bump up the purchase price to be able to get a seller
We just
credit.
Which is what we talked about yesterday in the meeting, right?
So they can afford it, but through financing it.
Through financing it. Your buyer's gotta be okay with financing it. And that's not a conversation that we should be having, because we're not lenders. We need to work with a lender who's going to be able to have those conversations. And then, like I said yesterday, how about appraisal, right? We can't get too crazy.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yes, it has to, certainly has to.
So Sean is really genius for what he did yesterday, right? Because no one else has come. Is anybody working with a lender who's contacted you that said, hey, I've got a plan? No, because I haven't gotten a call. So
Most of them don't know what's going on.
they don't know, right?
I just talked
Or
about
they're
my
just
lenders,
waiting,
and she
or they're
said,
feeding a lot of misinformation, which is.
she said, just let me know after the class is finished, so how this buyer thing works.
So after our meeting yesterday, I had a women's council meeting, and 2 of the lenders there, Cherry Creek Mortgage and Wells Fargo, and I asked them point blank, what's the plan? Oh, we have a meeting on Friday. Both of them said the same thing. Okay, they have a meeting on Friday, so, and they're both lovely ladies, but they don't have a clue either. So we really gotta work as a team, whoever your lender is.
I kind of wonder if some of it has to do with how long they've been lenders.
Yeah,
right?
these have
Because
both been 20 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, he's been a
lenders.
lender for a while, so he went through this whole legality thing that we're going through.
Mhm.
So he kind of went through that experience.
Right. So, but both of these ladies are 20 years. I know. And it's not that I'm blaming them, it's just that they haven't taken the incentive to figure out how they're gonna do their job. And it's like a lot of agents. Let's stick our head in the sand and maybe it'll go away. But we're all learning together, even our lenders. So we gotta definitely be a team. Okay,
Just a quick question. I met up with a friend who's in real estate outside of our brokerage. She has a listing and coming up, and the seller's not going to be offering any kind of concession. And so I asked her, well, if someone calls you, like, what is your response going to be? Are you going to say no? And she said, I don't want to say no because it depends on the terms of the offer. He might be open to it if it's over asking. And so I guess, do you feel like there's like an inherent flaw with the concept of calling a listing agent? Because if it's not in the contract, they could tell me they're offering 10%. Right? And just be
it
lying.
absolutely is. It's a huge flaw that no one in NAR or CAR has thought of yet. And I guarantee you, November 26th is the actual first hearing date on this settlement. And that's gonna get postponed. It absolutely will. It's not gonna be till next year, and then all of this is gonna be revised again.
But when we send in our offer, we're also sending in our buyer broker agreement.
You
that says what
can,
commission
yeah.
we're asking for, so we could negotiate there with the seller
Yes.
what we want.
And that's what the
Yes.
intent is, Jacqueline. The intent is not, for us as listing agents, not to have any dollar amount for a buyer. As listing agents, we're not supposed to do that.
Right.
It's supposed to be negotiated when an offer comes in.
Right.
But if I call your friend and say, hey, are there concessions being offered? And she tells me no, I'm gonna not be too interested in that.
Yeah, I guess, but that's, don't you, but I don't know if calling a listing agent, I don't know.
I know.
'Cause that's not coming from you. I heard that from NAR. I
Right,
mean, on their town halls, they're saying that, which
Yep.
makes absolutely
no
no
sense.
sense.
A lot of this absolutely makes no sense, but we've got to adapt however we can. So if it's not negotiable until an offer is written, but we as buyer's agents don't know if they're offering concessions, that's why we have a buyer broker. Our buyer is obligated to pay us. So we're not really shouldn't be steering at all because the buyer's already agreed. Now, if the buyer says, I can't pay you, you're not steering, right? Because the buyer's already said, I can't pay you,
So then we're only gonna show them houses where they're offering.
where they're offering. But how horrible is that when we have agents like Jacqueline's friend who absolutely wants to offer a concession, but her seller says, we'll worry about that when we get an offer, but we're going in blind. But we're really not blind because this is supposed to cover us, but our buyer said we can't pay you. Well, but then we've got Sean Herrera who can work his magic and we can up the price and do that. So it's a lot of work, guys, but everything's possible if we have the right situation. I'm gonna go with Dawn first.
Couple of things. One, I want to just go back quickly to that compensation, that form for the financials.
Uh-huh.
So I just want to be clear, we don't have to ask for their actual bank statements. We just need to get them to sign this.
Just
form.
fill this out.
Got it, okay,
If they push back, just make a notation
right.
that they don't wanna do it.
But I'm saying that that's easier than saying, I need to fill this out, than I need your bank statement.
Right,
You know?
right.
So the other thing is, in regards to writing offers, if they're saying no, they're not gonna offer compensation, to me, I'm still gonna submit the offer because I'm asking for my compensation in the offer. Like, I'm not gonna not take my client to their house because 9 times out of 10, they're probably gonna give some compensation. And I think in the beginning, people are trying to get away with not offering those concessions.
But when they
So
see every
realize
offer.
that every offer that's coming in is asking for it, so.
Right.
And what's the worst case? They're gonna say no, and then you can tell your buyer, do you still wanna go with this or not? And then you can move on to the next one.
And then you can move on to the, so what it is it's a lot of extra work, but this is our job.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to do the extra work. And yeah, it sucks because we've had it for all these years. Now it's not. We actually have to do a little bit more work. So this is really taking away that adage that people say that we're overpaid.
Yeah.
We're so underpaid, it's not even funny, right? Right? Okay, so Don, Kevin,
They kind of talked out what I was gonna ask, that scenario where the concessions aren't given, buyer can't pay. I'm still gonna write the offer because I'm gonna negotiate somehow. They still say no,
and you move on to the next.
but what, okay. And yeah, because I guess you're right, because they're gonna decline the offer where I asked for them anyways. They say no, so then my buyer is asked out anyways.
And
So,
if they counter
guess-
it,
right.
then the buyer, you say that they've countered out, they're not paying me, so you're paying me, right?
Right.
No. Okay, then we can't accept this offer,
Right,
right?
got it.
So it's extra work that we have to do, which is why I'm really adamant on this 3% because we're so easy to say 2.
That's also where we can get creative at that point with the lender and say, well, maybe the lender can make it work for us. Do you really want this house since they're not gonna give us
Absolutely.
the compensation?
Right?
I just, and the reason I wanted to go longer on that one is because we're always covered as far as we're never gonna get into a contract where there's no commission. Now I'm committed because the offer did get accepted. But I don't think we'd ever get to that because if they're not paying, they're not paying. then
I'm
we
out.
can't, yeah.
The beautiful thing about this is it gives the brokers 5 days right to rescind a contract. So if something funky happens and you miss something and, oh my gosh, it got accepted and there is no commission for me, we can go in and rescind it.
That's by default.
The broker can rescind it.
Yes, the broker can rescind it. Yes.
Got it.
It's more work for Lisa.
Because all of the files belong to the broker.
Right.
Right? So that is a great thing that they added in here because something is gonna happen. We're human beings. We make mistakes, every single one of us. And we're gonna go, oh my gosh, it got accepted and my commission's gone. Well, sorry, that's not gonna happen. And then the seller's gonna go, what?
Well, it's gonna, and then.
There
on
goes my
that
offer?
part- Yeah, and then on that part,
Absolutely.
they're gonna start thinking, okay, we need to start making our stuff, telling our sellers like, here, this is gonna happen.
Yep.
We have to offer.
As listing agents, we've all got to educate our sellers. Carrie?
And that's the situation that, right, where this continued right to payment for broker involved properties would come in. So for example, I could see that happening where you go and show a property, write the offer, didn't work out because of the commission and the house sits for a bit.
Then they go get
60
another.
days- No, or 60 days
Yeah.
later, they just go back to the listing agent.
Right.
Right? So that's a good way
That's the good thing.
to use that.
Yep.
for yourself.
Absolutely. So lots, but every situation is gonna be different, so not every form is gonna apply to your client. But a worst case scenario, it will. So, are you good, Kev?
Yes.
Okay, these are great questions. Does everybody feel like they're getting something? For those of you who have never written one, I know you're nervous. But really, I'm a phone call away and everyone else is calling, so you should too.
Lisa's up at 9 p.m. too. Feel free to call.
I said, if I'm up, I'll answer my phone. If I'm
Your
not, I'm not.
voicemail box should be, this is Lisa, make sure you check the box.
Check the box. Did you check the box? Okay, we did the BFPI, the buyer has funds or doesn't have funds. And as a buyer, even if I had funds, I would do it.
They're gonna say no.
But that's
so-
what the BFPI is supposed to help eliminate people from lying. But I also don't want you guys to have a bad taste with a client, right? If it's gonna be ugly, just don't push it. And
Can we use the word, hey, this form is optional?
no, I wouldn't say that right out of the gate.
Got it.
Because we want them to fill it out, but if they get ugly, then just.
I think the financial form is another way to find out if the buyer actually have a lender. They usually say, I already have a lender, blah, blah, blah. So they have to put that lender information there.
Yeah.
And we can call the lender.
So for those clients that we don't know yet, it's a really valuable tool, right?
Where do we put the lender's information? Or where do they put it?
On that form,
3G.
in the middle.
3G, lender information, company, loan officer name, phone, email, pre-qual, pre-approved, fully underwritten.
If anything else, that's all they have to fill out and I'll just ask the
It's on the
lender.
BFPI.
right?
So we'll
That's
go
a
to
very
this
good
form.
point, Christina.
Seriously,
So
fill
Kev,
this out with just that
Yeah.
information. and I'll
just
take it.
section 3, lender information, 3G. If that's
Yeah.
all they want to fill out, great. Because like Christina said, then we can just call right to their lender. Which, there's no problem giving us that information.
No.
We should have it anyway.
When I go to
So
print
very
this
good.
form, it prints all like this. This is the whole thing.
No.
So we have to add in.
So maybe not the later ones I copied, but it should have copied a color. I went and highlighted all the different forms.
So we need to add in.
Yeah.
here. Okay.
And some forms will auto-populate if you check the box. Again, you gotta check the box and it'll auto-populate. Okay, so, there's that. Advisories, the only form that comes with this is the BCA, the Buyer Compensation Advisory, is the only form that comes when you,
With the compensation.
with this
agreement.
buyer broker agreement, yeah.
And this other terms, can we put here, like if they say, oh, we only want you to show us houses with compensation, we could put that here?
Sure. All right. So guys, really, page 1 is the only ugliness. The rest is the explanations, what we just talked about. Wally?
Sorry, I'm still confused about the G2. So the two
G2?
boxes, yeah, on the bottom, right before the end of the
Oh,
page.
uh-huh.
So which one, I mean, can you just elaborate on that, like,
So if they tell you they don't have money to pay your commission, they would check that first box.
Okay.
Or if it's something they've already talked about with their lender, or you've already talked about with their lender, they would check the second box. But not all lenders can answer that question yet,
yeah, I know.
because there's finagling.
And then if neither one applies, you just leave it blank?
Well, one of them's gonna apply, it's either or, right? They either have
So
the
if
money
lender
or
says they can't, you know,
Both of them says it does not.
yeah, and then,
buyer intends to purchase with the following loan product, which does not allow buyer to pay compensation to broker.
Yeah, it's kind of like that question.
Yeah, that's a really
Yeah, it's
bad
like-
question, that's bad.
So they're either not gonna mark a box, or they're gonna probably mark the first one, buyer does not have sufficient funds.
Yep.
What if they just have cash?
Well, if
That's
they,
either one of those boxes.
then just leave it blank. And if they fill out the BFPI, the financial information, and you just have them do 3G, which is the lender, then you can call the lender and find out. So guys, we're really gonna have to work now. Not that we didn't work before.
So what if, you know, you have a personal lead and you have them sign the buyer rep form? And we went to look at homes, there's nothing. Where do we put on file, like a on file management? Do Lofty or Sky Slope?
So in SkySlope, you can create your own document section. So you're not creating a file because there's no property, right? But you can create your own document section.
And like you can add all the, like the personal information form up there so it's not lingering around.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So what I do in zip forms, I have a miscellaneous folder that I put all kinds of junk in there. Because even personal stuff that I need to DocuSign out, I put it in this and I can DocuSign it and off it goes, right? Because I don't use I say DocuSign, I use the e-sign, I don't do DocuSign. So in zip forms, you can create a miscellaneous folder or a BRBC folder now, right? And then it'll just save in there. Or SkySlope, you can create a document, whichever you want to do.
I have a template.
Mhm.
In your zip. I put all of this in the buyer template.
So there is a way to put it in Lofty under each client that you're showing property?
Oh, I don't know about
Lofty
Lofty.
has a documents tab.
Oh, it does?
Yeah,
Does?
I just wanted to know what's the best
Okay.
practice for like WR
Haven't even thought about that yet. We're so beyond where my brain's been. Whatever works for you, because I really only need those when you write an offer, when you get going. If you write an offer and it gets rejected and we have you guys send all your rejects to the SkySlope email, right? Just include that and I'll just throw it in the folder that it goes to. But whatever's easier for you. So Lofty, if Lofty has a documents tab, you can do that.
Yeah, especially if it's labeled showing homes, it should have the document in there.
Yep. Absolutely. Or car, or zip forms, or SkySlope. So you have options.
Have any of our approved TCs offered a service to help agents with this process?
Sophia must.
No.
You are gonna get beat. Absolutely
Our fees
not,
just went up, Kevin.
because they don't even know all this.
My fees are
Right.
5-star.
Because they're not
hotels.
realtors. I think only 2 or 3 of our TCs are actually realtors. Shayna, Neo,
Mary Kay.
Mary Kay. Deb, is Deb licensed?
She was. I don't know if
She was.
I don't
She's
know.
not licensed. No.
Shayna's a,
She used
Shayna's
to
a
be.
pro at this. If you have any questions, she's a broker as well. Go to, she's amazing. And she knows documents like Lisa, like inside and out. They're no big deal to her.
But I would not require our TCs because the majority of them are not licensed. We shouldn't be using them as realtors. Unless they are.
Okay, so you forever see agents themselves doing all of this paperwork just like the RPA?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I see these changing next year.
As soon as we figure it all out, it's gonna be.
It's absolutely
Oh,
inevitable.
way to do it.
It's gonna happen. But again, guys, November 26th is the actual first, so really NAR just bent over. That's all they did. They got this proposed settlement and they went, oh my God, let's make all these changes. It hasn't even gone to court yet. A judge hasn't even looked over that settlement. Well, I'm sure they have, they just haven't ruled on it yet. The other thing, the Department of Justice, DOJ, has been granted access again to start their investigations. Who knows, right? We just have to pivot and adapt. Does anybody watch Friends? I know I'm totally. When he's trying to get the couch up the stairs. Pivot. So that is, every time I think of the word pivot, I think of Ross. Pivot. Okay, any questions? Where are we at on time? I know some of you, wow, 1 hour. I guarantee for next week when we do the purchase agreement next Thursday at 10:30, it probably will be longer than an hour. And then the following Thursday at 10:30 will be the listing agreement. So the next two. Does anybody have any questions? Wally?
Just to recap, to the buyer identification of preferences in properties, so that is like optional, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
It'll apply to some, it won't apply to all. And that's true for all of these forms, except for the actual buyer broker agreement. That is a must-have to show property.
Then the notes of broker involved properties, that one is also like.
That's if you're running out of your 3 months and you've shown them property and they haven't decided and they don't want to renew, you need to give them that list of properties that you're procuring cause on.
Oh, in case they go back and purchase them.
Right. Which is no different than it's always been.
Yeah.
We're still okay with that 7 days for the Zillow form.
Yes, the Zillow, so separate Zillow people, you have the touring agreement, I think they call it, and you can use that. If you could get them to actually sign the buyer broker, please do, right? Because the touring agreement isn't protecting you.
I used the other day with the Zillow, I used the showing properties where you can put the specific address.
Yes, NSP, blah, blah.
I used that one.
So if you're only doing a couple for Zillow people, you can use that form.
Where do
So
you see that?
Does that have their,
it's,
commission on it, Melissa?
no,
No, it just was, basically, it's just connecting, kind of similar to this noticed involvement one. It's similar to that where you're just like, these are the properties that I showed you. And so at the end of the day, I just kept adding.
it's
So
called
it's
a
like, these
P.
are the ones that we've seen today, so I need you to sign this, so I show you these properties.
Okay.
What's it called?
Which form is that? Is
It's
that through Zillow or?
No, it's a car form.
So, and the,
No, it goes with the open house, the OHNA, but then there's a PS.
I don't know, I just know it says showing properties something. Is it property showing and
Yes.
representation agreement?
Yes.
PSRA.
PSRA, and it only has the lines for a few properties.
So if we say Zillow finds out, we can just write those down.
That's like their dating, dating form.
Yeah.
Because the touring agreement that Zillow offered us does not protect us in any way, even with E&O, because it is not a car form. Okay? So the PSRA form is a CAR form, and it allows you just to put a couple of properties on there. So my recommendation is always use a CAR form.
Yeah, the Zillow form, they don't have to sign that.
Right.
So, yeah, okay.
But NAR is saying we do have to have a property
Right.
sign. So
Yeah.
maybe the PSRA is probably the better of the two.
And it makes sense, like, oh, we've seen, like she said, we've seen these properties there, and she just find that we saw these, so I mean, that's actually a good little.
It's, yeah. And then if they decide they want to write an offer, we need to do the buyer broker agreement. But at least you've covered yourself with a CAR form that's
Yeah, that's a good idea.
actually enforceable.
I'm sorry.
No.
So in the past, my previous broker always said that we need to do the buyer's broker, because I had a lot of instances, that somebody hadn't signed and then the client was not happy with them.
Yep.
And they came to me. But she always told me, like, it doesn't really matter if you had them sign the buyer's broker. You can't really, they can go to somebody else.
Absolutely.
How does that, is it the same with this one? Pretty
So,
much? They
pretty
can
much.
always fire you and this, I signed it, doesn't mean nothing?
If you haven't provided them with the NBIP, the NBIP form, notice of broker involved properties. If you have not provided them, yeah, they can go anywhere. It's no different than we say with anything. If you and the client are butting heads, let them go.
No, I'm just saying, just in the past it happened,
Exactly. So in the past, the buyer broker agreement was significant, but rarely ever utilized. So therefore wasn't something that even our attorneys on staff, right, even really thought about. Okay, yeah, I guess you're procuring cause, but did you do A, B, and C? Well, now A, B, and C is a form where it wasn't before. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So I think absolutely it will be more enforceable because now it is a required document. So yeah, our attorneys are gonna have to step up.
The only problem is because people, like, they call an agent from Redmond, then they call an agent from Zillow, and then we call them like, okay, you inquired about this property, like, okay, who's this? And I called many places, you're like, oh my God.
Because the consumer doesn't understand how our business works. They truly don't, nor should we expect them to. It's our job to educate them. So when you get that phone call and they start asking, and let me explain to you how this works. Now you're starting that relationship building, and they're gonna be more apt to call you, right?
So the buyer can like walk away from our agreement even if it's 3 months, as long, and they can go buy another house with anybody else, as long as, and I won't be entitled to it unless it's something that I already showed them.
And you provided them with the form.
Okay.
Right.
And you stocked that property.
And you stocked them and the property.
But it doesn't tie them to
It takes so
me
much time for
personally.
stock
It just ties
properties.
them to the properties I've shown them.
So theoretically, yeah, it does tie them to you. But how are we going to enforce that? Are we going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on an attorney?
Okay.
No, we're not.
Okay. That's not my
Paperwork.
Okay.
That's the realistic response,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Okay.
Can we fight it? Absolutely we can.
Question
Are we
on
going to? That's
the notice of broker involvement properties
Mhm.
form. For number 2, it says the representation period. Do we want that to be similar, like the 3-month period as the other form?
Yeah. Yep. Any other questions?
Yes.
What you got?
Why is the buyer material issue on the property is on the buyer side now? Shouldn't the seller be the one disclosing the material issue that affects the desirability of that house?
That is a form that I have no clue why that's even created. I really don't understand that form. It's buyer, it's in here, it's buyer material.
Issues for a specific.
Yeah.
They don't know about that house, why the
I
heck?
mean,
So-
is that, could that be pertain to, like, I don't wanna buy a house that someone's died in? Like, that would that fit?
Is
That's
that
very
it?
good. That could
Cause
be.
I have that, or like, certain clients.
A
know
grow
that's a deal
house, I don't
breaker.
know.
But what, okay, but they.
Buyer,
find out in the
let me read
beginning.
this out loud. Buyer obligation to disclose material issues. In accordance with the buyer rep agreement, buyer has agreed to notify broker in writing of any material issue to buyer, such as, but not limited to, buyer's request for information on or concerns regarding any issue of interest or importance to buyer.
So maybe after you do that walkthrough with them.
No. This is,
This is saying
This
you're
doesn't-
contemplating making an offer,
Right.
an
Yeah,
offer
this
purchase,
doesn't-
or is
So-
already in contract.
When a buyer says, hey, can you send me disclosures on that property? And then they've read through the disclosures and then they have issues,
Yeah.
that's where this comes in.
When you walk through it, maybe, so
Or
that
maybe
and
when you
walking
walk through.
Yeah.
So like first
Ask
showing,
them
if they're
about
like,
this,
oh,
or-
the floor is damaged here, and that's clearly an issue for them, you're gonna,
Your
buyer has issue.
But
with it.
again, I don't understand why they
But
created
that's
this
insurance.
form.
Yeah.
If you're submitting an offer, I'm saying, not if you just asking questions. that
Because
you just
this
wanna
isn't
know.
gonna pertain to anything.
exactly.
I mean, so I can't answer that question, Chris.
Now, my question is, do you have to include this in your buyer?
Yeah, is this even needed?
Because
It's going to, so if you send someone the disclosures and they've read through and they're section 1 and they call and talk to you about it, that happens all the time, correct?
Yeah.
They should fill this out. If they walk in and the window's broken and they've said that to you, they should fill this out. But that's really no different than what we're already doing. We're just not putting it here. We're putting it on a what? Request for repair, right? So I don't understand why they created this
that's
form,
again, yeah, what's the purpose?
but it's here for us to use if you want to.
So I don't have to use it, I guess my question is.
You don't have to use it,
Okay.
but I recommend if they are calling you and telling you about things that they want fixed when they're writing an
You're
offer.
gonna be in the RR.
I know.
What's
We're
going
gonna put it
there?
in a,
I'm not arguing with you because I don't get it either, but that's what this form is for.
So she's saying but not saying, ignore it.
Yeah.
Please read between the lines.
I'll say it for her.
Yeah, because again, it's a form that I've read over 1,000,000 times and I still don't get it. I don't get the purpose of it. If anyone else understands the purpose of it, please share, because I just don't.
I think it's more for people that find out that someone died in the house because you don't have to
Could be.
disclose it up for 3 years, but if you ask the agent if someone died there, they're obligated to tell you.
3.5 years ago.
Right.
But you wouldn't be ready to so.
I know, but yeah, then you wouldn't be writing an offer, so why?
Well, if the buyer finds out and still wants to buy the house, this is verifying that that they knew about it. They can't come back and
Yeah, that's
sue
kind
you
of what I was
for,
thinking, like maybe
That's
for
a good
Texas
point.
in a
they
sense,
can't
like.
come back and say they didn't know, and they wanna get out of the.
That's a very good, so that would be helpful.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. What was that?
Huh? Where'd you go?
Huh?
Where'd you go? Because we were all sitting right here.
So if someone dies in the house, and of course, they don't have, the listing agent doesn't have to disclose it after so many years, but if you ask them, they're obligated to tell you yes or no. And so if the buyer finds out or knows about it, it's good to have them sign this so they can't come back later and say, I wasn't aware of it.
Good
Right?
point. Yes.
Hey Lisa, real quick, this makes no sense to me. The page 5
Of what?
section, of the rep agreement,
Okay.
section 16 is literally the exact same sentence as 2E1. We're just literally confirming it by rewriting it a second time.
Yep.
And then my second question to you is,
And 15 has to be initialed if it's an exclusive.
and so my second part to that is like, my understanding is our E&O doesn't allow us to do like, co-broker listings.
Right.
Right? But isn't that no different than non-exclusive buyer rep agreements? And do you foresee, insurance potentially increasing?
That's a very good question. I don't foresee them changing our policies. Because it's a little different. This is just a buyer as opposed to a listing is this is a potential client,
Okay,
right? Where a listing is an actual transaction.
got it, understood.
So I don't see them doing that, but it absolutely could.
Yeah.
I mean, anything could happen, right? Any other questions?
Realistically, we should be getting their ID as well.
What?
Their ID should be coming with them as well, to make sure that we're putting in the correct names, like they should find the name, right? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, that's no different than what we do now. I mean, you should always ask your client if they're under a trust or an LLC or, right? But it would be good
I always put it.
if you want to do that, I'm not gonna require people to do that.
Yeah, well, you still
Yeah, they're gonna do the same thing unless.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, it is.
Christina?
I'm back on that material, issue.
Yeah.
About what you said, about, oh, if the buyer didn't sign, like if the buyer signed this and they find out that somebody died after the 3 years, we still be covered because we're only allowed to disclose up to 3 years.
Right.
So it doesn't really, we can.
That's, I can't quite grasp the concept of that form, but it can be used all different ways. Joel?
So we can submit an offer with the other document that we were talking about, because we write.
No, you have to have a buyer broker agreement. That document that, the PSRA is only for showing.
Can we get like a big whiteboard with all the acronyms and then the actual like?
I am actually
I don't
waking
know how
up
you
in the
remember
middle.
them all.
I don't know. I wake up in the middle of the night going, BRBC.
CBA. 3RBA.
I know, that's a lot. And all these new ones that I'm having to learn, it's just, but again, we pivot and it all works out. And truly, a lot of these forms, yeah, they're new and we like to bitch and complain, right? But they really are for our benefit. So
The biggest benefit is the wasting of time.
that is.
I mean, as much as the money is, the wasting of time. Time is money.
Time
I
is
can't
money.
tell you, all of us have stories of,
Yep.
I showed 18 properties to a client over 2 weekends and they ended up going with their cousin,
Right.
you know?
This eliminates
Where I
that.
could have spent time with my family. So.
Or
to me,
found
that's gonna
another
be the biggest, benefit.
So that is above everything else, and we can joke and complain all we want. That is the biggest benefit right there. You are protecting your income.
So with the BRBC, what other, out of all of these other forms need to go with the BRBC when initially?
Initially, the BRBC and the BCA, which is attached to it. Everything else is client specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't need the seller payment buyer broker form?
Well, you do if you're submitting an offer.
Yeah, okay.
And you check 3G3 on the purchase agreement, that form has to come in. And if you check the box, it's gonna auto-populate, but yeah. So yeah, so that's their purchase agreement class.
Okay.
But when you check that box, and all of us will be checking that box, that form will now become part of the RPA.
Well, even with my Antioch listing, we got the contract, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, but people were submitting those documents with it just
Right.
to cover and get in the habit, I'm guessing.
And get in the habit, yeah. There's a couple of deals right now that were on the cusp of getting accepted. I can't remember who it was. We switched over, but it was still the old MLS, and I said, best send to CBC, and then they took the CBC away from us.
Oh.
Was that you? No, I can't remember who I talked to. It's not in, I didn't know that.
CBC.
Compensation.
Broker commission agreement, yeah. So now it's called it's called
I
the
use that
CA.
form all the time.
I know, it's called the CA now.
Oh.
Concessions addendum.
Commission, compensation agreement, I think it's called now. I'm like, wow. So lots of new things, but in that in-between period, I had agents doing, well, the CBC until they took it away. And there was never any notification that it was going away, it just isn't there anymore.
Wow.
So, Carrie?
Did I hear someone say that listing agents are asking for the BRBC?
They can ask for it, yeah.
I was just saying on my Antioch, when we got offers, people were submitting those forms with the offers.
Because the compensation, if the seller agrees to pay for it, has to line up with the buyer broker agreement. So even if they're offering 3, but our buyer broker is only 2, you're only getting 2.
And I had this happen to me yesterday. I asked the agent, hey, is your seller giving out commissions? And then he said, well, concessions. He asked, well, before I answer that, do you have a buyer broker agreement in place? Now, is that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
Because whatever they offer, is based off of the buyer broker.
Yeah.
So in their head, they could be thinking 3, but if you only have a buyer broker for 2, they only have to pay you 2.
Yeah.
They're not paying you 3. So that's why I say let's go
It's like
for
at the offer, we're
gusto.
gonna be really negotiating a lot of the time.
Yep.
Some agents will be cool, like, oh yeah, we're offering this on that, and then we can put that on our agreement, right? But a lot of them aren't gonna be cool, and they can be like, send me your buyer broker agreement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It
Weird
ties
about
to
that, right?
your commission. So you gotta have that agreement before you even show a property. You have to have that form.
So the more in-house deals we do, I'm hearing is the better.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm hearing.
That's what I'm hearing too.
Any
We all
Discovery
know.
Bay Golf Club buyers? Sorry for the early
Yes.
Slack text.
That's okay. Anybody else have questions? All right. Always my phone is on. Call me if you have any questions. If you're in the middle of it, I don't expect anyone to memorize this. Really, it's new. It's new to all of us. Let's just learn together. We'll be okay. All right. On another note, if anyone has someone looking for a rental, I have one in Brentwood, 4-3, 3450. Beautiful little house. Let me know.
I have a question to ask on behalf of Misty Duran. If anyone's afraid to ask questions, just tell me, I'll ask it.
Kevin,
But I'm curious too. So a scenario playing out. Okay, the seller's not offering concessions. And so, but the buyer really wants the house, so I can't write you this offer because you're not gonna pay me, they're not gonna pay me. I'm sorry. Okay, no problem. So you're gonna go to the listing agent. Listing agent then says, all right, well, I'll write it up, even though you can't afford me and my seller's not gonna pay me double. I'm gonna write it up because that's the only way I'm gonna get my commission. Concession, sorry. Or no, it would be a
Absolutely.
commission. So can we see that happening?
I absolutely see that happen.
Because at the end of the day, they're, okay, well, I'm just gonna suck it up because that's the only way I'm getting paid.
So on the listing agreement now, the new listing agreement says compensation to the listing agent is X amount. And then the box right below it says, but if a buyer comes unrepresented, commission will be X amount. You can put another number in
So
there.
they're still gonna have to pay. It has to be
So we just
unrepresented.
need to keep reminding them, they're gonna pay either way. If you go to the listing agent, you still have to.
Well, as long as the listing agent and we as listing agents stick firm,
True.
then yeah, that is dual representation is gonna happen. But they're changing the rules on that too, and it's very clearly stated an unrepresented buyer. So that listing agent theoretically isn't representing your client. So that buyer's going in blind. And we have to explain that to our buyers too, guys. Because the mindset is, well, I'm just gonna go to the listing agent. That's really not benefiting them at all.
But then they sign our agreement so that we can, of course, that we get paid on that commission if we show them that
If
house.
they can afford it, yeah.
That's why it's important to talk to your lender too, to see how much wiggle room they have. Because if they're approved at 800 in the house that they're offering 750 on, then they have that room
We have wiggle room.
to offer more and get that money back to pay their agent,
Right.
buyer.
And then, but then, like I said yesterday, that's where appraisal comes into play and how is that gonna affect it? There's a lot of variables. But my prediction is dual representation is going to have to go away. Because the whole reason we're in this pickle is because of the government thinking that the consumers are idiots.
Yeah.
So now we put them in the only possible thing they can do in a consumer's eyes is go to the listing agent to write the offer, but that's not helping the buyer.
Right.
No.
So I predict dual representation, there's gonna be some heavy things happening with that. And it already is, because clearly on the listing agreement, it says unrepresented buyers.
So then if my client go say, I can't afford to pay you, I'll go to the listing agent.
They're
It's not-
unrepresented.
Right, but you still have the procuring cost because you show them the property, right? So if the listing agent think that, I'm gonna double end it, but then I show her the relationship with this buyer.
Right.
Then.
But again, that's where we said, it's our job to stock the property, stock the buyer.
I don't wanna.
It's a lot of work, right?
Sophia's favorite thing to do, so we're good.
The stock properties.
She's a cyber stalker. Jacqueline?
I saw this up in Sonoma County, so I just wanted to propose a question to you guys out here. I'm seeing on our MLS listing agents asking for the buyer rep agreement to confirm the showing.
Oh, that'd be awesome. It's like a
And
COVID form, that'd be
It's
great.
literally like the key.
Yeah, I would be
Now,
cool with
I
that.
haven't done it yet, but one of the my Zillow leads came in and that was property they want to see. So I sent the buyer rep and she declined to sign it, so I didn't show her. But my thought process was, well, how would this go? Because now reviewing this, I wonder if the listing agent is screening showings based on if they have proof that they can pay me. Because they know that the seller's not gonna pay, and I wonder if that trickle effect is gonna that'd be interesting. I just thought that was really weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
it is,
yeah.
right?
See, that's why I really think dual representation is gonna have to be modified.
Yeah.
Because it's not in the best interest of the consumer.
Yeah.
And that's what the DOJ is all up in panties in a bunch about, and all these lawsuits are the poor consumer, you know, they're grown adults, but they're idiots, so the government has to help them.
It's the best option.
Please. So dual rep will have to be switched. And again, it already is. It clearly states unrepresented buyer.
Do you think the listing brokerage could get in trouble for denying showings if my buyer rep agreement shows that they don't have the money to pay me? And they decline my showing?
Because that's another form of steering, right?
Yeah.
It absolutely, but here's how are they gonna get in trouble if we as agents don't pursue it?
Right.
Then no one gets in trouble. But yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Any other questions?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Just say it, because if you're thinking it, someone else says, so just
Well,
say
I
it.
just, okay, the whole thing about that it says like buyer, on the listing agreement, buyer would be unrepresented, but then say the listing agent goes to write them an offer, in here it says buyer's brokerage firm. It said, so like, would that just be blank? Like, how does that work, I guess?
It should just be blank, yeah.
But then you're helping them fill it out.
Yeah.
Right, you're still doing the
But
work.
it's weird because you
It's
still
weird.
are representing.
But even the
How's
town
that,
hall
yeah, legally?
meetings specifically state, you as the listing agent should check this box and put it in manner, because you're gonna be doing extra work, but you're not really representing the buyer. Exactly.
It's like,
I listen to those and I'm like,
legal loophole. Doesn't make sense.
it doesn't make sense, but they've literally said that. Check this box on the listing agreement and put in a percentage for yourself, because you will be doing extra work, but you're not representing the buyer.
So you could essentially
That is
write this
so.
for them and then be like, okay, you've written it, my seller has accepted it. Now you're on your own, right? Like
Right.
essentially that's how it is. You're not gonna help them do inspections, like they're.
But then we're gonna get sued.
Yeah,
Yeah, that doesn't make
So
sense.
we
Yeah, that's what I'm
can't,
like,
we
it's
can't
just
not
weird.
represent
So
them.
then is this is probably gonna get redone at some point as well, where a buyer.
Absolutely.
would write it
I don't know if it'll
for, or
go that way.
how, it's something to check, like not representing her.
Yeah, they wouldn't have access to the car forms. So see, there's a lot of question marks all over the place, and we don't have answers yet. But dual representation, I guarantee, is gonna be something that is gonna be modified.
So we have a listing agreement, like I had on my listing in Livermore, I had a buyer come to me, did not have an agent. So I cannot represent him.
Sure you can.
I can do a buyer broker with him?
Yeah.
And- Okay, so you still can represent them as long as you have.
For
a
right
buyer.
now, yes, but you have to have a buyer broker agreement with them,
Right.
and you have to separate yourself. But what the listing agreement is saying is, as the listing agent, I can get another 3% from my seller, and I don't have to represent the buyer. But your brokerage is gonna tell you, you absolutely have to represent that buyer. I absolutely want a sky slope file, because yeah, you are representing that buyer.
Yeah.
But why would a seller pay you an extra 3%, but they wouldn't pay a buyer?
That's the big question. But it's clearly on the listing agreement.
That's so wrong.
The other thing I want to just make clear about the listing agreements, even though that class isn't for 2 weeks, is there is absolutely nowhere to put how much a concession is, because we're not supposed to be having that conversation. So
We're not supposed to document.
we're not supposed to document it, exactly.
And
So
there's that extra form that we have to put in there, right?
there is no extra form. for compensation to a buyer's agent because we're not supposed to have that conversation. It's only supposed to be negotiated when you get an offer.
No, I mean for the seller's payment to the listing agent. There is a form that is attached now, right?
That's the purchase agreement. I'm talking about the listing agreement.
Yeah.
In the listing agreement, it will still have.
Carrie?
It's really no different if you think about it.
Right.
With, well, I was gonna say on a for sale by owner. So I've represented a buyer on a purchase for a FISBO, and I didn't represent. I mean, I guess I didn't get any extra commission for that, but you just have to be very clear that you're not representing that seller, you're only representing the buyer. So you just need to give the proper disclosure if in reverse you're also representing, or not you're representing a seller, but writing an offer for a buyer,
Right.
and doing that extra work.
Yep.
You know,
It's
Still ended up.
you still
it's
have to
muddy.
do all that
Ended up
extra
all
work.
the work for the seller,
Right.
because the seller don't know.
You're still
And
doing
that's
the
why you're
extra work.
asking for that extra compensation.
And it's clearly on the
You're
listing
still
agreement.
doing all the
You're still doing it.
disclosures and everything.
And NAR even acknowledges that you will be doing extra work, listing agent, so make sure you put in a percentage for yourself.
But
And
you're
just-
not looking out for their best interest.
But it's not looking out
You're
for
not-
the buyer's
you're not
best
their
interest.
fiduciary.
So DOJ will definitely have something to
It's
say
kind
about
of
that.
shady still. You are, yeah.
It's very
I feel like
shady.
it's more shady now.
Yeah.
I know. It is, which is why all this is gonna change again. Yep.
To go to, I believe Melissa said, we're not supposed to document what concessions are given. So do we not, if an agent will not pick up their phone,
Write the offer, fill it out, send your buyer broker over.
I guess my question was gonna be, because all, text me for a faster response, my favorite saying in real estate. You don't want us texting the agent if they don't pick up, go, hey, what's the concession?
Sure you can.
Okay, I'm just saying like document wise, that's
So
that's
the
okay,
text
right?
would read, is your seller offering a concession?
All right.
And then the answer will be yes or no.
Got it.
It
Can
won't
I
be a
ask
dollar
how much
amount.
at that point, or?
Well, so this is where it gets muddy because you absolutely want to, but theoretically, we're not supposed to even know what that number is because it's not supposed to be negotiated until you get an offer.
Got it.
The offer and what you're getting is based off of your buyer broker agreement.
So as soon as I hear yes concessions, I'm 3%, cool, let's do it. Here's my offer.
Absolutely,
All right, I got you.
3%.
So for newer homes, we just need to have them sign the buyer's representation.
So for new construction, I would definitely do the buyer broker
Just
agreement.
that because it's a new home, okay.
Yep. Yeah, they only pay us if the market's bad.
Yeah.
And if their name's not Lennar.
Yeah. If the market's good, they don't pay us anything. But yes, buyer broker agreement for any property you show, including new homes. Very good question. I
Well,
didn't
yeah,
think about
I
that.
know you have to show that, but I'm saying, I mean, you have to fill that out, but the rest of the form you don't have to.
Right,
Because new home.
it's a new home.
Here goes this
Yeah.
little brain again. Okay, I have a buyer broker agreement with my buyer. Buyers love to go to new construction without you once in a while,
Yep.
right? And then you find out, oh, hey, Kim, we stopped by this new construction, we just put it up, you know.
Yep.
Can I then, hey,
You send
Hey,
it
Lennar.
over. Hey, Lennar.
check this out. And then they can just tell me go kick rocks because they're not offering a concession.
Well,
The
they
buyer's
don't.
responsible.
But the
Yeah, I guess the
buyer's
buyer would be on the-
responsible.
Yeah, you're right,
Just like
you're
the
right.
listing agent doesn't care if they come to them, the
Yeah.
listing agent owes you nothing, it's the buyer.
Yeah,
Right,
it's the
right.
buyer, right? You
Yeah.
see how this is all working now?
Yep.
But even the new homes are gonna have to adapt. They're not going to at first, but they're
Yeah.
gonna have to adapt. Because now Mr. Buyer owes me 3%.
Yeah.
But now he doesn't qualify for your loan because the lender isn't being creative and now they can't buy the house.
You know what?
So then the new home's gonna go, Adam,
Most new
Yeah,
most
our-
new home
our expert
agents
here.
in that scenario
Yeah.
means the
yeah.
sale versus getting their, VP of sales to get the, the 3% or whatever, they're gonna get 3% for you. So you just have to talk to the sales agent.
Yeah, but one of them told me,
But it's good.
said I've done a lot of business with one in Rio Vista, those new homes that they're building
Uh-huh.
for 55 bucks. I know those girls there with, Nova Homes. So I was asking her like, so how's this gonna work, work out, what's the new rules that are being implemented? She was like, it's not gonna be a commission anyway, because we're just giving a referral fee.
It's a referral fee.
I know, but they were just kind of trying to work around it, saying like, we're gonna give it anyway, no matter what, these people are saying,
Right.
because there'll be a
So
referral
if
fee.
their referral fee is $1,500, but you have a 3%, now you've got to go, do you go get the
Yeah.
difference from your buyer?
Right.
And I say, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. But with new construction, it's all, I don't know if you guys realize this, it's negotiable with them. Like, even if they say we pay you a flat $10,000, I negotiated with our house, they were offering a flat $10,000, which came out to like 0.5% of commission. It was ridiculous. I negotiated all the way up to 5%.
Wow.
So you can negotiate. It's just not something that they
But
talk
your
about very
situation
often,
is really different because they really needed to sell those homes.
Right,
Yeah.
that's why I'm like, but we always, I think going into new construction, as realtors think, oh, it just is what it is, but you can still put it in the contract and say that you want something and now, you know what I mean? But a lot of
Because
people
it's
don't think
always
you
been
can.
negotiable.
Yeah,
It's not that they don't think they can, they don't want to.
you don't think.
Because it's too much work.
No, I meant realtors don't
Yes.
think they can.
It's too much work. They don't want to negotiate. They want it,
I
they're
don't
just
think
getting a
it's
referral fee. But
Yeah.
they've always been able to negotiate it.
Yeah, but when the market is like crazy for them, they like back in 2020, 2021,
Mhm.
I lost maybe like 20 buyers and
To new home?
yeah, to new homes in what do you call it? In San Joaquin County, the city, I forgot. Tracy.
Oh,
I was
gotcha.
calling like all day long, these brokers, these new builders, they're not even answering their phone. So my buyers had to sit there all day and night to just get an appointment because they have like 400 people on the waiting list.
Oh,
of
yeah,
the
with
50
COVID.
homes they're building.
Yep.
And then after like about 3 months, we walk into one of these builders, it was a small builder, and the lady said, we only paying you $1,500.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that wouldn't even pay for my gas all these months. For
Yeah.
She said, well, I'm sorry, that's how it is. And I was like, wow, I was upset.
Yep.
But then when the market changes, all these 20 years I've done this business, how funny it is. They
always that
invite
way.
you to come and have drinks and bring your
Yep.
office people. To me, they're mafia. New builders.
They are
Especially in the NAR. But I did them good twice.
Christina?
Can you just add on the buyer representation
Oh, that
under
is a-
property type new home?
Sure.
We can just put new home, there's a line,
You could, yeah, there's an other line, you can,
or on the bottom, H, other terms.
yeah,
new
other
home.
terms, new home communities, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, wouldn't it still be covered under? a
It's still
single
covered
family?
under single family, yeah. Because it's a single family,
Yeah.
it's still covered.
Wow.
But if you feel more comfortable typing in new homes, you
New
absolutely can.
construction, yeah.
Yeah.
Construction.
Absolutely.
Just to be extra.
All right, any other questions? Thank
No,
you
we got
guys.
minimum days.
Thank you for having us.
Y'all lucky.
Absolutely. So next
Minimum.
Thursday, same time, same bat channel.
All right, Batman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.